Hi everyone, JUSTPADRIDE Snowboard channel here. I'm Lars Horstman, and in my last video I showed you that I have a new board to test this year. A Salomon HPS, a hillside project shaped by Wolfgang Nijveld. That is a Takaharu Nakai EP in a 169. And yeah, I showed you in that video how I go about measuring all kinds of things, so I have my own reference about this board before I even ride it. And today I'm going to tune it. And what I noticed first here is that the sidewall of the board is basically kind of flush with the edge. It's not very recessed. And since I tune my edges quite a lot, I'm certain that I would run into sidewall removal urgency within a few weeks. So I'm going to do this right from the get-go, and then I can tune my edges all season and don't have to worry about it. We're gonna lock this board into these vices properly so I'm not messing anything up, slipping due to a wobbling board. So these vices have grips, and this is pretty solid now. So I'm doing this with a sidewall removal tool, and this thing can be adjusted in all kinds of different ways. This is my cutting blade right here. This is just a bearing that will guide the tool on top of the edge. And this little blade here can be adjusted. It can be tilted this way, but it also can be moved in and out. And that depends on the shape of my sidewall. And I adjusted this already. And I'm just gonna give this one good pass here. You have to be very careful when you enter the edge. Technically, the thing has issues cutting right in the tail and in the nose. I do believe that has something to do with the board's thickness there, and also with the fact that it's a tip, like a nose bend or a tail bend. So you have to be very, very careful easing into your edge before you actually apply proper pressure. So, and then eventually you can apply some more pressure and you will start to remove little shavings like that. So this sidewall material is seemingly quite firm. This is not a perfect cut, and I will have to buff this out a little bit. And this is what I've been saying all the time here when I'm telling you this is not super easy. It depends a lot on the sidewall material and how the board is made, and it needs some practice to get this done somewhat neatly. So you can actually see right here that it's a little bit rough. You see the line that I cut. It's not terrible, but it's definitely a little bit rough, and we're going to polish that out. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use a Panzer file or bastard file. I'm not quite sure how you guys call these. This is the stuff that requires a lot of practice, as in, like, don't just take some big ass file to your brand spanking new board and go to town. Practice this on some old gear. I've done this a million times. I know the angle that I need to hold this at. I've developed a feeling for this, and I can basically quite easily take off a little bit more sidewall on top of my cut that I just made with my sidewall removal tool. If you're liking this video so much that you are actually watching another one and then another one, and then you get into binge watching JUSTPADRIDE Snowboard channel, then you should subscribe to this platform, like the videos, share them with your friends, ring the notification bell so you know what's coming up next. And if you really want to, and I've helped you tons with your gear, then you can also support me on this little platform called Buy Me a Coffee under buymeacoffee.com/justaride. Thank you kindly. So once you're done with the file, you can give that another bit of a polish with like a scrubby pad, one of these guys. Or you can do, that's a bit of a pro tip, the groove you leave behind from your sidewall removal tool is obviously a little bit round. And if you need to get properly in there, then you can take some fine sandpaper, a tiny piece, and wrap that around something round. I'm using like a rounded carpenter pencil here, and you basically just guide that through this groove, and you sand a little bit, make it a little bit smoother, and that's it. So you guys know the drill. Next thing here is base edge, obviously. That's how you start your edge tune. I'm just checking with my 1 degree base bevel guide what's going on here. And I'm actually able to remove a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of steel. So this board is probably pretty much around a 1 degree base bevel. Seems to be that way tip to tail. Here and there I'm removing a tiny little bit of metal, so that's pretty good. Obviously we're doing this on both sides. Side edge check, the old Sharpie trick, best thing ever. Just paint the whole thing black. And from my previous video I actually have marks still on here that tell me where my effective edge starts. So that's quite handy for tuning as well. I'm tuning 88 degrees side edge angle. That's what I do on all my boards. And I'm going to start this with a 14 cut because this edge is really, really good. It's really smooth, so I don't need to remove tons of material. I did 3 passes and my Sharpie is almost gone. You can see here how there's still some Sharpie, but also some exposed edge where I shaved it off. And then areas like here, you can actually see the Sharpie is completely gone. So this is not 100% even across the whole edge. I'm going to give it a couple more passes so I have a nice, clean, even 88 degree edge. Sometimes playing with the file angle changes how much the file grabs. So don't just put it into your guide and forget about it. Play with it. So I ran another finer file along the side edge, and now that's it for filing. Now it's diamond. At this point I'm taking off the burr that I left tuning my side edge. I'm taking that off the base. And if you haven't gotten much practice with this, you can use the file guide that you were using before. For me, this is quicker and easier to just feel out my base bevel with my thumb and gently run my diamond along and feel it out. Right, same diamond now in my side edge guide. Same story, you want to get that thing wet. On the side edge you clearly want to use a guide. We just set this to 88 degrees and that's what I want to stick with through all the diamonds. Don't use too much pressure. Just let the diamond do its thing. So I went all the way down through 400, 600 and 1000 grit diamonds on both sides, base and side edge. And this is my last pass and it already feels like super, super smooth. Here's the side edge, slightly more polished than when it came out of factory, and I now have a consistent 88 degree side edge angle. I'm not even gonna bother with a gumstone here because there's no burr and that is the sharpest edge that I could possibly ask for. That's great. So I got 1 degree on the base and 2 degrees or 88 or 92 on the side. And the only thing we need to do now, I find that important in particular with powder boards that you ride off-piste, is I do a full-on rounding of the edges around nose and tail. And what I mean with that is rounding from past the contact point. So I still have a mark here, that's where my effective edge ends, and I'm going to round all this off. I don't want to be filing into my effective edge unless you want to detune the tips, which I don't. I only want to go around the nose and tail. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want my nose and tail to be less grabby. I don't want them to cut into like chunder that is lying around when I'm riding off-piste. I want them to be able to pivot and never catch on anything. It's just kind of a nicer ride, and it can also be safer in areas where you really don't want to hook up your nose in like a pivoty turn and then fall over. So now you want to wax your brand new snowboard. I always use a scrubby pad to clean the base, I do that before I wax any snowboard for that matter. It doesn't have to be a new one. So we've all heard the myth of the factory wax and your board is ready to go. Actually, I'm not fair. The board is ready to go, as was this. But how long for? They are waxed in the factory, but nobody's standing there saturating this base with an iron for like 15 minutes and then letting it cool off and even applying the temperature of wax that you need to start your season. Maybe it's cold, maybe it's warm, God knows. So my tip is wax the heck out of every brand new board. A base will only get better and better and better the more wax you give it. And in particular with the higher end sinter bases like this one here, that is the case. So why not just go into town? I'll be using my base prep wax, Board Butter Glide wax, pretty awesome. And I don't want to damage anything, so I'm going to rub that on first, cold as it is, before I then drip on the base with the iron. The reason I'm doing this is this way I never put my hot iron anywhere on this base where there's no wax at all. It's pretty anal really, you don't have to do that, but it does make sense in my head, so I'm doing that. Takes 1 extra minute, so why not? Sprinkle some wax on there. Once you sprinkled on your wax, you want to distribute all these drips nice and even across the whole board. And then we do a few even passes from tip to tail. It's really cool to see when you have a nice and flat base like this one here, how the whole footprint of your iron is actually melting wax and is leaving a line here. This is really cool, and that is unfortunately quite rare. Lots of snowboards out there that are not very flat, and that is not great. So Salomon on this end is winning. So my first coat of base prep wax has dried, and I'm simply going to heat that up again. I heard different theories. Some people say you won't get more wax into the base by doing this. Others say you do, and or you will, and whatever. I have the time and it's fun, and I'm waxing away here. I'm not going to bore you with this. Bit more scraping. All right, last step here, quick rotor brush, and this thing is ready to rip. So here's our base, nice and shiny. This seems to be a base that absorbs quite a good amount of wax. Also seems pretty firm when I was scraping it. No indentations from my scraper, pretty easy to scrape. The whole thing was really easy to tune, so that's great. Alright, this is what I do to a brand spanking new snowboard, and by no means am I saying that everybody should or has to do this. What I do think you need to do pretty early on is waxing. The factory doesn't have the time to properly saturate your base the way it could be done with an iron. So go ahead and wax your board. That's an easy thing to do, and it'll contribute to the longevity of your board. So in regards to edge tuning, if you know what you're doing and you want your reference tune, please go ahead, do it with your brand new board. Therefore you can compare it much better to all your other boards if it's tuned the exact same way. If you're not familiar with edge tuning, don't just hack a file into your new edges. They come out of the factory really bloody well. Watch my 1 hour long edge tuning clinic on the channel here. Familiarize yourself with the topic before you go to town. Alright, if you like what you have seen here today, please feel free to share it with your friends, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want, ring that notification bell so you know what's coming up next. And definitely don't forget to buy me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com/JustARide. See you out there. Take care, everyone. Thank you.